Hope springs eternal within the human breast. Every man to his passion, but even Ray didn't think they had a chance in this Parisian backwater. We come off the Seine to spend a few days in this quiet quartier and visit a few old friends. Almost every weekend, these enthusiasts from the Museum of Mechanical Music come here to try out their machines in public. My daughter Daisy and her husband Marcus had come to spend a few days with me on the barge. This bar organist song was about the sound that women's skirts made as they swished up and down the boulevards of Paris at the turn of the century. Frou frou, frou frou they went. This canal runs right through the heart of Paris, far from the Grand Boulevard and the tourists. I suspect all Paris was very much like this 50 years ago. Friends had told me to visit Sylvie, the Madame Arcati of the chocolate world. But no, I'm not having my fortune told. Sylvie is a poetess and a thoroughly eccentric baker. Her shop is famous for its secret blend of chocolate and orange. C'est pas des tartes aux fraises.
Non, 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 mais je fais des choses à part.
She put her success down to her complete lack of memory. She couldn't ever remember a recipe. Each cake was an individual inspiration. This particular cake represented the well-known Saint-Exupéry story, The Little Prince. She was a very literary baker.
Toujours les contes et la poésie revient.
I don't know why it is, but giraffes always remind me of the Eiffel Tower. loops back into the Seine near Sèvres, where they make the finest porcelain for popes, presidents and royalty alike. The factory was built in the 18th century, and neither the buildings nor the methods have changed very much since. Almost everything is done by hand, and the enormous expense of it all is subsidized by the French government. Sèvres boasts it can replace almost any item it's made over the last couple of centuries. This can be very handy when a dictator's mistress has thrown a priceless plate at him. Those beehive kilns used to take 14 days to fire the porcelain. Nowadays, converted to gas, they take 4. The trick is to know how the various colours will react in the oven. They've had a decent amount of practice over the last couple of 100 years, but they never write anything down about the method. The secrets are passed from master to pupil, generation after generation. Burnishing the gold is the final step. As we came back into Paris to our mooring under the Pont des Arts, we found these fellows practicing for the night of music that the city celebrates on the shortest night of the year. One of our neighbours lived aboard the Souki, an old Dutch barge which had been gradually turned into one of the most desirable residences in Paris. The present owner was an art director who designed sets for films and television.
The story of the boat, it has been built in 1890 in Dutchland. Then in 1950 or 51, it has been bought by a charter company, English charter company, who transformed it really very well, but in the 50s style, really all in formica. It was awful, you know. Oh, I always lived in special places, you know. Before I lived in a bakery in the Bastille, and after I bought a house in Montparnasse, and you know, I like to find a beautiful place to transform it, to make it like I want. And usually I move, but this one I really don't want to move.
No, it's really fantastic.
I feel very well, like in a suit, you know, perfect for me.
But you can move, can't you? You can just go.
Yeah,
you can move.
That's something more than any place, you know, any house. The idea that you can move with your house. You live very differently. I can go on the sea.
But you have an address here, you're like number 1 Paris here.
Yeah.
You have the best mooring anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't ever hope to find anywhere better.
No, that's the problem. That's why I don't move so much for the moment. I'm afraid not to find it again.
I called on a friend who's one of the world's leading harpsichord makers, an Englishman called Anthony Sidey. It takes 7 years to finish one of these exquisite instruments, from shaping the wood to painting and varnishing and setting the strings. Of course, he has several on the go at once.
The first harpsichord that I played on was finished when I was 15. So I started when I was about 11 years, making harpsichords. I visited the continent with a friend and came through Paris and fell in love with Paris. So I just dreamt of living in Paris.
And making harpsichords?
And making harpsichords and playing harpsichords as well, which I did quite a time, but you can't do both. So I decided to just play for the pleasure and make for the pleasure, but make for bread and butter as well.
Of course Paris is beautiful, but it's these craftsmen who make it so interesting. Down there lives Rostislav Dubojinsky, an émigré, an artist, godfather to 2 of my children, and something of a genius at making masks, I think. I'd met him when we made the film of Beatrix Potter. You came to Paris,
yes,
and you did a little bit of everything in the costume.
Yes.
When did you become a specialist in masks?
I was never a specialist. It's one of part of my work. It's like accident in my career, because you can see that I'm specialist in everything of wool dressing, of chandlers, of model of furniture, of scenery. Really, I'm not specialist in nothing, but I have touched to everything.
But Tonton, how did you manage to make the animal mask you do so beautifully, so like the animals? When did you go in the country a lot?
No, I have the experience for the mask because I have made the costumes where was necessary the mask. Was a huge problem, the aesthetic and the problem of technique, because the mask was done for the classical dancer. The classical dancer was seen everywhere, 108 degree, down, up and sideways, otherwise they can't dance. So there was 2 problems to arrive to a really realistic kind like the designs of Beatrix Potter, and the possibility for the dancer to to dance.
Up these stairs lives Michel Saint-Martin, who's written a tune that's becoming very familiar.
Wonderful. I don't play keyboard usually, so it's full of mistakes. But even in organs, there are sometimes.
Yes,
it's better to have few mistakes.
Is it possible to play it on your flute?
Yes, but we won't have any accompaniment. It could be played on 4 flutes. Even on the flute, I make mistakes.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
And we shall try it on the accordion.
Yes, tonight. Everyone knows that Paris is a city for lovers. I'd planned an open-air dinner party on the night of music. Bruno de Kaiser, a great French cameraman, arrived on board to create a culinary masterpiece out of shin of veal and leeks. By this time we were all drooling. Daisy and I laid the table and everything was ready. But into every life a little rain must fall. The long wait for the rain to lift gave us time, too much really, to think about the city we all loved and were about to leave. Daisy was going back to England, and the next day the Leo, Ray and I would be pushing on towards the south. last the rain stopped, and we drank a toast to St. Cecilia, the patron saint of music. We made our way back after our melancholy dinner through the floodlit city, past the conciergerie, which used to be the Gestapo headquarters in the war. Tonight you were allowed to make as much noise as you wanted between dusk and dawn, providing it wasn't in time. Daisy and I wanted to see some of the action. We leave this beautiful city. Bravo, Paris!